Welcome everyone to my brand new channel. The name is the Pineapplegrenader, and the games talking about things that interest me. Mostly includes video games and animation, but I promise to keep things fresh and spontaneous. Before making this channel, I already made a cache of video essays. To give you a taste of my thought process and ideas, I figured I'd make a compilation of 5 of my favorite essays. The first one made is a video in 2018 campaigning for Rayman to be added to Smash Bros. Ultimate. Next was an analysis of an OKKO episode and how it relates to creating content for online audiences. In 2020, I made a video focusing on improvements I'd like to see in LEGO games. Again in 2020, I made a video detailing some of my favorite game trailers. Lastly, in 2021, I made a video listing off ideas for dream LEGO games. These 5 videos can be seen as a reference of what I'd like the channel to look like in the future. This list isn't comprehensive, however. I omitted speculation videos as they are dated. I also took out any school projects as they are not reflective of the topics I'm focusing on. Lastly, I have a huge video ranking 100 of my favorite movies that I left out simply for being way too long. I have a playlist in a card and in the description where you can watch all of these videos separately. Without further ado, may I present to you Season 0 of the Pineapplegrenader Talks About Stuff show. Enjoy!
Out of all the potential third-party legends to join the Smash Bros. Series, none are as realistic, overlooked, or have as much potential to be a great fighter as Rayman. Ever since I started playing his games as a kid, I've always wanted him to join the battle, and I'm equally glad that there are others who feel the same way. Here are some common and not so common arguments as to why the Limbless Wonder deserves to be in Smash. Presence on Nintendo consoles is becoming less of a parameter in Smash Bros. Speculation, but I still think that it's important to discuss regarding Rayman's chances. While some people might consider him a PlayStation character, Rayman has appeared on many Nintendo systems throughout his history. The first Rayman game was ported to the Game Boy Color in the year 2000, and on the Game Boy Advance, taking the name of Rayman Advance. Rayman 2: The Great Escape came out on the Nintendo 64 in 1999 with a Game Boy Color iteration called Rayman 2 Forever in 2001. Rayman 2 also received a Nintendo DS port in 2005 and a Nintendo 3DS port in 2011. The GameCube and Game Boy Advance both received their own versions of Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc in 2013. A sequel to Hoodlum Havoc, Rayman Hoodlum's Revenge, was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2005. Rayman Origins came to the Wii in 2011 and Nintendo 3DS in 2012. Finally, Rayman Legends came to the Wii U in 2013 with an updated version ported exclusively to the Nintendo Switch in 2017. However, one really cannot talk about Rayman's Nintendo presence without bringing up the Rabbids. The Rayman series and the Rabbids series are considered separate, but for the sake of my argument I'm going to consider it a side series, much like how the Wario, Yoshi, and Donkey Kong series are all a part of the greater Mario universe. In this case, the Rabbids have had a large presence on Nintendo consoles, with some games having exclusive iterations or completely Nintendo exclusive games. With the wealth of Rabbids games on the Wii, Wii U, and DS family of systems, Rabbids could be considered pseudo-Nintendo characters. With the infamous artsy Omni Rayman leak in 2015, Rayman Smash hype was at an all-time high. I believe that this specific hype contributed to the ever-growing support for Rayman, which also contributed to his results in the Smash Ballot. It is currently known that the results of the Smash Ballot helped in the development of Ultimate's roster. It is also known that the project plan for Smash Ultimate was also being conceived around when the development of the DLC content for Smash for Wii U finished in 2015. This year is very important for this argument. Not only did the artsy Omni leak and the Smash Ballot occur during this time, but the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions of Rayman Legends were being released, meaning that the game and Rayman were still relevant. However, there is one more piece to this puzzle that helped birth the fiery hotspot of relevance for Rayman in 2015. That piece is also known as Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Discussion between Nintendo and Ubisoft regarding the game started in 2014, 1 year before the rest of our previous arguments. Conferences between the two companies were constant during the development time. If Nintendo and Ubisoft were conversing so much during this time, what would have stopped them from having additional discussions about Smash? Personally, I think this argument is pretty likely. One of the points often made against Rayman's inclusion is the fact that his games are created by Western developers, which would create communication barriers for the Smash Bros. Development team. However, one important fact that counters this argument is that the Rayman series has already been represented in Smash. In the Wii U version of Smash Bros., the Rayman series received 3 trophies depicting Rayman, Glowbox, and Barbara. In the case of the Rayman trophy, Ubisoft sent in a unique 3D model for the trophy, potentially as reference. This exchange proves that it's possible for the Smash team to interact with Western developers, and for Rayman to make it into Smash Ultimate. One of the more recent points made against Rayman is his inclusion into Brawlhalla, an indie Smash-like game. Some people believe that because Rayman is in a game similar to Smash Bros., he cannot appear in Ultimate. This can't be farther from the truth. One counterpoint is about the timing of his announcement and his development. Ubisoft's acquirement of the game's developer happened in March of 2018. This is probably around the time when Rayman was developed for the game. On the other hand, Smash Ultimate's roster would have been finalized by 2015. If the Smash development team wanted to get Rayman in, they would have found a way to get him. Another counterpoint is that many characters in Smash have appeared in other fighting games. By this logic, characters like Ryu, Mega Man, Pikachu, and even Link shouldn't appear in Smash. Shovel Knight, a character who was recently announced to appear in Brawlhalla, has also made appearances in other indie fighting games like Blade Strangers, Indie Pogo, and Rivals of Aether. Even if Rayman doesn't make it into Smash in any capacity, Brawlhalla would be far removed from that reason. One big point to bring up is that Rayman and his series have an interesting aesthetic and personality that would contribute to the melting pot of gaming universes. Many of the Rayman series have lush, high fantasy settings mixed with cartoon-inspired elements. Rayman also has a fun and playful personality, one that wouldn't back down from a fight and equally wouldn't turn down a long nap. However, a character's potential moveset is just as important as their aesthetics. Rayman as a series is well versed in combat. His moveset in Origins and Legends laid a foundation for his normal attacks. His special attacks could represent the rest of his series. He could throw giant plums, use the battle fatigues, shoot energy orbs, and use his famous helicopter hair for recovery. Rayman has so much going for him, I'd be shocked if he didn't make it into Smash Ultimate in some way, shape, or form. From his inviting aesthetic and fun personality to his legacy with Nintendo, Rayman has the makings of a great character, hands down.
Out of all of the modern Cartoon Network shows, I'm surprised to find a consistently solid piece of animation in OKKO Let's Be Heroes. There's hardly a stinker in its swath of hilarious episodes. Today I want to take a closer look at a personal favorite in Season 1 and how it embeds depth to endearing characters, adds nuance to a tired cliche, and comments on creating an online landscape. Let's analyze Everybody Likes Rad. One important distinction between episodes about making art online and Everybody Likes Rad is how they choose to frame the creator and the creation. In other episodes of this nature, the plot would paint the creator as someone who is only interested in short-term fame, lacking in talent, and overflowing with ego. The product of their ego would produce cheap, lazy meme videos for a passive audience to gawk at mindlessly. I very much dislike this approach in representing online content because it disregards people's personal tastes and effort put into the creation of content. I believe that people's tastes in media have more nuance than outside observers are willing to let on. Along with that, while not every piece of media created for the web is a masterpiece, it's easy to find heart, soul, and imagination in the smallest YouTube video. This heart and nuance can be seen in how the show represents Rad and his audience. While Rad's attempt to film ends with him smashing the bodega's roof in, he still finds pride in the work and is able to see the possibilities of his new outcome. Rad creates for the sake of creating, because he finds enjoyment in creating art. Even when offered the chance for fame and fortune, his desire to create never falters. His audience is also represented pretty well, finding genuine joy and humor from his creation. This episode excels in providing feelings of warmness from Rad's pride in his work and the joy from the audience. However, it's the relationship these two share where the real nuance lies. The main conflict of the episode comes from what the two parties value in the art Rad creates. Rad appreciates the setup, the punchline, the cinematography. He appreciates the separate elements that make the video so charming. The audience sees the video as one whole element rather than several pieces. It's a video where a guy falls through a roof and says a funny word. It's the realization that the two parties view the art differently that makes Rad distraught. The audience's chant for him to say his funny meme word causes Rad to question whether their appreciation is genuine or not. The difference in value comes from the audience not being able to see the creation of the art. The artist and the audience can see the art differently because they view it at different points in time, at the beginning of its creation and the end. I actually find this conflict relatable because it's something that I went through early in my YouTube career. Let me set the stage. It's early February of 2015. I'm sick at home and decide to browse the web. I stumble across some news of a Steven Universe crossover with Uncle Grandpa. I was so ecstatic that I decided to create some fan art of it. I even recorded myself drawing it for fun. This is the story of my most successful video as of this date, sitting at 9,000 views. It might be a small number for YouTube standards, but it was big for 2015 me and his 3 subscribers and 2 view average. My joy and pride was soon shattered when the comment section was updated with disgust and annoyance at the concept of this crossover. What I failed to realize was that my success came not from my art, but my video being one of the first of this topic, being created on the day of the announcement. The audience was not looking for cool fan art, but answers to a perplexing idea. In this moment, I felt what Brad felt. Of course, I had nice comments, but the overwhelming negativity made me question what made the video so popular. In an indirect way, the video fulfilled a part of their wants, even if our desires didn't match. This is the same with Rad. While it's easy to doubt the admiration of your audience, it exists. It's just that what they like is different from what you like. If there's one criticism I could leverage, it would be with how the rest of the episode shifts focus from a creator-audience relationship to the topic of being derivative in art. The biggest issue with this shift is that the concept is never truly developed. While it is set up early in the episode, Enid explaining to KO how an online creator needed to do the same thing over and over to maintain their viewership, this is something Rad never does. Rad never creates another video with the intention of being popular. He only makes one video. In this way, the idea of Rad being more than a stereotype never gets developed and explored as well as the climax alludes to. Even though the topic is interesting, it makes the episode in general feel somewhat non-committal and half-baked. Everyone Likes Rad is a surprisingly in-depth look into the struggles of an online content creator and the differences between an artist and their audience. I really enjoyed the positive portrayal of the two parties. The OKKO team didn't take the easy way out with this episode, and the result is a story that creates solitude for unappreciated artists and a lesson about how the admiration of an audience isn't the sole worth of art. While Rad extinguishes his dreams of creating in this episode, it's reassuring that he's able to find joy creating with his friends as the seasons progress.
I love LEGO games, but even the things that you love have room for improvement. In today's video, I decided to compile some changes I'd like to see implemented into future titles. Be sure to round off in the comments what changes you'd like to see. I think one of the first issues that comes to mind is the moments between playing levels and exploring hubs, navigating menus. There have been some improvements in the latest games, like having a level select, separating levels by chunks, and displaying the completion requirements for each section. However, I still think there's room for improvement. Having the ability to jump into a level or hub within the title screen would speed things up immensely. It can take a while to wait for the game to load me into the hub,
then boot up the level from there, and I'd like to start playing quickly. Likewise, I think the character selection screen could use a facelift. With these modern rosters reaching numbers within the hundreds, it makes it hard to pick a specific character. Grouping characters into folders by series or moral alignment could allow the selection screen to zoom in and become more visible. This could also provide the chance to group together character variants. Somewhat related, but I think it would be pretty cool if there was a red brick that could automatically choose a random character suited for a puzzle, removing the need to go to the selection screen entirely. Wasn't sure when to add this, but I thought it would be pretty cool to mention. The character customizer in DC Supervillains was already a massive improvement. I figured I'd offer a few small suggestions. For one thing, I'd appreciate it if adding a weapon didn't replace the personality-specific idle animation. Allowing our characters' personalities to shine through while holding a specific weapon would allow more personalization. Also, having more generic hats, hairpieces, bodies, and such would give more options to character creation. Running, jumping, and attacking are super fun in LEGO games, but I think we can increase the fun with a few improvements. Overall, it would be pretty cool if characters were more mobile in general. One of the reasons why the Ninjago movie game is one of my favorites is because of how mobile you are and how far you can get around with nothing but a double jump. Combining a more potent dodge roll from DC Supervillains with a jump could lead to the creation of a long jump. The major hurdle with making characters more mobile is that it could create issues with pacing, like sequence breaking. This wouldn't be too much of an issue with an action platformer, but LEGO games tend to lean on the side of puzzle games, so sequence breaking could be problematic. The designers would have to strike a balance with how much freedom of movement would empower the players while keeping the pace of levels intact. On the topic of combat, adding a combat triangle could increase depth and fun. For those uninitiated, the combat triangle is that dynamic where attacks beat grabs, grabs beat blocks, and blocks beat attacks. Having dynamic enemies who block attacks or attempt to grab you would be super cool. With a grab button, you could have players and enemies be able to pick up and throw objects like projectiles. Throw in a special move for some of the cast and you've got yourself a full moveset. Now, on the topic of throwing. Pretty self-explanatory, being able to freely pick up, move, and throw objects can lead to depth and puzzle solving. You could have situations where you're paired with a character who can't lift up objects but has an ability that you don't. With this scenario, you'd have an interesting back and forth between the two characters. This is just one example of this concept. I'm sure the designers at TT Games can think of way cooler ideas. I'm not too fond of the way vehicles control in LEGO games, so much so that they end up being my least favorite parts of these games. I feel like they're a little too loose. Oftentimes the cars on the road will move slower than you do, making vehicle navigation frustrating. It's possible this is a personal problem or an issue with the hub design. Over the years, hub worlds in LEGO games grew larger and more dense. Running through Chronopolis in Marvel Super Heroes 2 can feel somewhat claustrophobic with how dense the map can be. If the next set of games are going to include multiple hubs, I'd appreciate it if they could be varied in size, density, and verticality. The sloping hills of Sonic's hub in LEGO Dimensions and the flat openness of the farm in Avengers help create diversity in their respective games. I understand that having multiple separate hubs might not be an effective use of resources, so if the next games go back to one huge map, variation between the different sections would be appreciated. Playing these games with a friend is incredible fun, but I'd love to play these games with 2 more players. Having 4-player co-op in the main campaign would be a dream, but I understand that considering the game balance, story, and even the IP being used, this might be difficult. Another welcomed alternative would be the return of battle arenas. I felt like the concept was really hitting its stride in Marvel Superheroes 2, with its smaller maps, larger cast of characters, and creative modes. Adding a bit of customization in the match settings would make this multiplayer mode absolutely perfect. One of my favorite new additions to the LEGO game formula was the addition of a notoriety system. In DC supervillains, if you attacked civilians, cars, or the environment, the police would come to attack you. In order to get them to leave, you'd either have to run away from the police or die trying. What made it great was that you were never too far away from a combat encounter. I hope some form of this system returns in a future game with a few expansions on the formula. It would be cool if the enemy changed if you played as either a good guy or a bad guy. For example, villains would have the police chase after them as usual, but maybe heroes could have some local gangs attack them as well. It would also be super cool if the longer you fought, tougher enemies would increase. Maybe it would lead to a mini-boss. Car chases would be awesome as well. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but you can see how this concept sparks the imagination. Recent LEGO games gave you the ability to take selfies. I think this feature can be expanded into a full photo mode. Having different filters and stickers alongside being able to pause the game to get the perfect shot would be tons of fun. I've been having a blast using photo modes in games like Super Mario Odyssey, and I bet I'd have more fun if a mode like this was in LEGO games. I think going forward, a re-evaluation of large rosters is a necessity. While it can be thrilling to play a game with over 200 or 300 characters, the excitement tends to wane when you come to the realization that 80% of the roster comprises of clones and recolors. While this practice allows a wider range of characters to be included, the campaign of a standard LEGO game won't even utilize them. Admittedly, it is fun to collect them all, however I'm willing to sacrifice a bit of that fun for the satisfaction of using a more condensed, diverse, and exciting roster of characters. Having less characters who are more in-depth with their abilities and creative in their appearance, I believe would lead to a more enjoyable game. First impressions are incredibly important. If it's strong enough, the trailer can impact you greater than the rest of the encounter. In the case of video games, a great trailer can flip your initial impressions on a game and sweep you off your feet. Some of my favorite trailers distill the essence of the final game and pitch it as an exciting mini-movie. I love great game trailers, and I figured it would be fun to celebrate a few of my favorites. Let's kick things off with Sonic. The Blue Blur has had a few good trailers in its recent years, Unleashed being a standout. Its initial teaser trailer is an excellent display of minimalism. I adore Sonic's peaceful whistling interrupted by his bestial transformation. A chilling introduction to an exciting new adventure. Sonic Generations has had a number of great trailers as well, the Rooftop Run trailer being a standout. I love how the text is integrated into the gameplay. I especially adore how they are placed within the stages while also having Sonic whiz past them with blazing speed. These trailers also have strong endings, teasing the many bosses in the game. Lost World was the first Sonic game where I was around for the announcement and release, so all of the new trailers were a special treat. The launch trailer is incredibly energetic, splicing together action-packed cutscenes, choreographed gameplay with sweeping shots of the Lost Hex, with a pumping electronic track to bring the whole package together. The thing in common with all of the Sonic Forces trailers was the awesome CGI animation. Watching all the trailers felt like tuning into a Saturday morning cartoon, leaving you excited to find out what's happening next. My favorite trailer of the bunch has to be the one for E3 2017, bringing in all of the characters we've met so far and revealing the old threats and a new rival, Infinite. Smash Bros. For Wii U had some legendary trailers, with the intricate stage gameplay showing off what made each character special, combined with the awe-inspiring animations made for a spectacular show. It was also cool to see so much diversity in visuals. Some standouts include the comic book style of Little Mac's trailer to Lucina and Robin's emulating the style of Fire Emblem 3DS cutscenes. Each trailer went above and beyond to showcase the best of these newcomers. The trailers after the game's release didn't disappoint either, from the palpable levity of the Duck Hunt trailer to the imposing despair of the Bowser Jr. trailer. There's been some really great LEGO game trailers over the years, but the ones that really take the cake were the ones created for LEGO Dimensions. The first wave had a really fun gimmick where a character would receive a starter pack and build it, then in the next trailer the same character would send the pack to someone else and the cycle would continue. It was a really inventive way to create continuity. The trailers also did a great job at selling the ambitious crossover with grand cinematic scores and action-packed gameplay. While the pack sharing gimmick didn't carry over to the second wave of trailers, the second year of the game did kick off with a fun CGI trailer featuring entertaining interactions between past and new characters. It's the inventive style of these trailers that makes them so memorable. Here's a blast from the past: Cartoon Network Universe Fusion Fall. The MMO crossover had many promos and commercials, but the main one, which would eventually become the intro for the game, always gave me goosebumps. There was so much striking imagery that was ingrained in my mind. The peaceful suburban scene interrupted by raining asteroids, the CN logo corroded by fusion matter, the plant monster intensely pursuing Ben, the massive battleship warding off the impending menace, and the Cartoon Network heroes packed together, ready for the fight ahead. Rewatching this trailer leaves me mystified and astounded at how this concept was even conceived. The ambition practically seeped from the trailer, making every epic shot and electric riff of the roaring rock track all the more thrilling to experience. PlayStation All-Stars character trailers were pretty simple, combining gameplay and the game's soundtrack to create a simple showcase. However, the trailers made for tentpole events like Comic-Con and E3 made up for this simplicity with a fun aesthetic. I like the idea of all the characters fighting in a big arena. Bright lights illuminate the All-Stars, while triumphant banners displaying PlayStation logos sway proudly in the background. Some of the trailers would even include crowds of people cosplaying as their favorite characters while holding themed props and signs. Combining these ideas with a montage of gameplay used in previous character trailers made them feel like a big recap before the main event. Injustice 2's character trailers also share the simplicity of PlayStation All-Stars' character trailers. However, the most interesting concepts come from the cinematic trailers for the announcement and DLC waves. They take a similar idea from the LEGO Dimensions trailers and puts their own spin on continuity. After watching all of the aforementioned trailers, you can piece together that all of the fights are taking place in one warehouse. They leave subtle clues like the characters' equipment strewn across the floor, or many of the heroes knocked out against the wall, suggesting that the first wave of fighters might have been taken out by the next. It's a creative way of making all the trailers feel cohesive. There are a lot more trailers on my list, but we don't want this video to take too long. Instead, here are a few honorable mentions before the last entry. Enjoy! Rayman Origins is one of my favorite games, and it also has some of my favorite trailers as well. I adore the cinematic flair and the whimsy of the debut trailer and the launch trailer, successfully representing the duality of grandeur and goofiness that the game embodies. However, my all-time favorite trailer is the Around the World trailer. This trailer takes the goofy and grand aesthetic and completely kicks it into overdrive. I love the more frantic rendition of Chasing a Dream. I love how the speed of the song matches the speed of the characters running. I especially love how the trailer starts with a more playful depiction of the game's many locations before transitioning into a thrilling supercut of all the bosses. I get goosebumps every time I decide to rewatch it. This trailer is absolutely magical, a rare exception of a trailer standing on its own as a wonderful piece of art. I love LEGO games, and chances are that if you're watching this video, you love them too. We've all had a thought about ideas that would make for a stellar LEGO game. Maybe it would feature one of your favorite movies, or it might shake up the mechanics for a fresh new take on the formula. Today I'm going to list off some of my dream LEGO games. Be sure to sound off in the comments what your dream LEGO game is. Before we begin, I'd like to list off two ideas that, while potentially the greatest concept for LEGO games ever, are sadly never going to happen. First idea, a LEGO Metal Gear anthology. The series has so many incredibly engaging characters, and a LEGO game would be the perfect game to bring them all together. Second idea, and my personal favorite, LEGO Fast and the Furious. It's the perfect series for a LEGO game. Tons of material to work with, an ensemble cast of memorable characters, iconic action scenes, and loads of vehicles. It's practically begging to be made into a game. Sadly, both properties have the hurdle of being too adult for the LEGO series. Even with its impressive talent to dampen any serious moment with a trademark whimsy, these two properties won't be hitting the big time, or should I say, the brick time. All of the LEGO movies are awesome, and their game adaptations bring something new to the table. While I appreciate the variety and the desire to iterate on the formula, it's a shame we couldn't play as these characters in a more traditional game. The nature of games like the LEGO Movie 2 and the LEGO Batman Movie Story Pack in Dimensions means that the more wacky and inventive characters won't ever be playable in a LEGO game. Each game also has a major issue with clones and simple variants that bloat the rosters. One way to rectify both issues will be to have a big anthology with all 4 movies in one game. Having the main cast of all 4 movies in one game, being able to travel to all the crazy locales and reliving through all the events would be amazing. LEGO City Adventures is an incredibly charming cartoon with an equally endearing cast of characters. Its cel-shaded look would look great as a game. Alongside this, the show has done the work of developing the world of LEGO City with interesting recurring locations and memorable characters. There's enough characters to fill a decently sized roster too. While I'd love to see a sequel to Undercover, I also think TT Games should give this iteration of the iconic city a shot too. I feel like TT Games don't have to get the license to the Fast and Furious franchise to explore a driving-centric LEGO game. Whether this is an entirely new idea or a remake/reimagining of the original LEGO Racers game, a driving-centric LEGO game would lead to an expansion of the driving mechanics seen in older LEGO games. 4-player races would be fun as well. LEGO Worlds was an ambitious title that had its fair share of shortcomings, but it ultimately turned out to be a successful game that achieved its goal of being a unique alternative to the crafting genre. While I have my own critiques and ideas that could fill a larger video on Worlds, I'd like to focus on one idea that could be the starting point for a sequel. Rather than taking inspiration from Minecraft, the sequel could iterate on Breath of the Wild's approach to open world design. Having one large pre-designed area combined with the original building mechanics could lead to a greater attachment to the game and its world. The formula has a lot of potential, and I'd love to see it grow in a sequel. What's more fun than solving puzzles? Creating puzzles with friends. I think having a LEGO game creator with the ability to share levels online would be amazing. Essentially an infinite LEGO game. This idea seems like the most unrealistic, as these titles have very complex level design. Finding a way to make the LEGO formula modular would be challenging, but rewarding if it ends up being both playable and fun. After the Skywalker saga, it's hard to see how TT Games can iterate on the DC, Marvel, Star Wars properties. While I'm not in a rush to see a Marvel Superheroes 3, I think a smaller scale title like the previous Batman games could be interesting. My general idea is rather than making a game centered on the entire Marvel pantheon, we have a smaller game centered on everyone's favorite web-slinger. Spider-Man's got a great collection of villains and allies to make a fun roster work. But what about the story? Well, I initially figured a collection of Spider-Man's best stories could work, but then I remembered the Spider-Verse sequel in the near future. Both of the films combined would have enough material for a full game, and the multiverse setup allows for a wide range of Spider-Man characters to join the roster. Whether it's a Spider-Verse adaptation or not, a small-scale game could breathe new life into these time-honored franchises. Some of my favorite franchises featured in LEGO Dimensions were the animated ones, due to their visual diversity. I think it's high time we got a game based on a cartoon. This idea is hard to work with due to the large variety of shows and movies to pick from. Some decent contenders include The Simpsons, Steven Universe, Adventure Time, and maybe Scooby-Doo. With the announcement of Space Jam 2 and the release of a collectible minifigure series, maybe we could even see one based on the Looney Tunes. While we're still on the topic of cartoons, there are many original LEGO properties that could work well in game form. It's been a long time since the regular Ninjago universe has graced game consoles, and a lot has happened to the franchise since its last solo game on the 3DS and even its appearance in Dimensions. Alongside Ninjago, fresh new series like Hidden Side and Monkey Kid have fun characters and exciting visuals that are begging to be in a game. Maybe TT Games could be economic and have a collection of stories and characters from these three franchises. I've explained before in a previous video how I'd love a 4-player LEGO game, but mentioned that making a co-op game where the story or IP can't afford it makes it challenging. However, there is one franchise with 4 leads that are incredibly unique: Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's so much history to pull from. They could do a game based on the recent Rise show, or a collection of stories from fan favorite iterations. They could also do their own take and try new things. The sky's the limit with the Turtles. Also, having 4 main characters gives them an opportunity to make levels designed for all of them. Either a 4-player game or a TMNT game would be cool in their own, but together would be amazing. So many LEGO games revolve around big, grand adventures, with tons of bad guys to fight, worlds to travel, and quests to complete. While all of these things are awesome, it limits the scope of the LEGO brand. So what's a new kind of LEGO game that we could create that represents an unexplored, more relaxing side of the property? Here's my pitch: an Animal Crossing styled life simulation game set in LEGO City. Different from the previous game and show, this game would be a new take on the city with a cast of new characters. In this game, you take on a common job found in the city: a police officer, a firefighter, or even a construction worker. Each job would have its own type of gameplay, and you'd be able to volunteer for other jobs to see what they're like. When you're off the clock, you'd return back to your apartment and interact with your neighbors. You'd also be able to build furniture with LEGO bricks and give them as gifts to your neighbors. There would be tons of events that you'd be able to partake in,
and you'd naturally be able to visit your friend's city via the internet. While I love the action-packed adventures of current LEGO games, you should get a chance to unwind and smell the plastic flowers.